moment. Paul reached out to me. We was in another meeting and asked me if I could come in and share some insight. In my past life, I was the fire chief in the city of Zanesville. Worked for the city for 28 years. Ran the streets for a lot of the years of that. My last 3 years was as the chief. But saw a lot, did a lot. And I actually started out as a dispatcher for the city of Zanesville at the Police and Fire Dispatch Center, and did that for 4 years before I moved over to the fire department. And I guess looking back, one of the things he asked me to touch on was, like the opiate problem in the community and how that's impacted our community. But let me go back a couple more years, and back in the early 90s, the early to mid 90s, the big problem we had in our community was the crack cocaine epidemic. And it was epidemic, but it wasn't killing people like the opiates did. And the only way usually they died from the cocaine overdose was if they ingested that cocaine. I took care of a young man one night in a jail that had swallowed a bag of crack cocaine to evade police with it, and it burst in his esophagus and absorbed right into his system, and he instantly died of cocaine-induced heart attack. What it would do is enlarge the heart and basically make the heart explode. And so we weren't able to save his life, but that was probably the worst you would see in the crack era. And then along, probably about mid to late 2000s, probably around 2005, 2010 era, we started seeing the meth epidemic really later, closer to 2010, 2011. And again, meth wasn't killing people. Didn't have overdoses from it. It's a slow death. If you look at somebody who's using methamphetamines, they can look like you and I sitting here, and then 6 months to a year later, after heavy meth use, they look like they've aged 10 or 20 years, and show a lot of effects of that. So it's a slow death that they'll die, but they don't die from an overdose. And probably the worst thing we were dealing with in the community and from the fire department's aspect was we were going out and cleaning up a lot of the after effects of it. They would discard their meth labs out in the community. They started the hot cooks.
That's your call?
Yeah, can you excuse me just 1 second, please? Hello? Sell me health coverage. It was a 614 number, so I thought my wife's. I got a honeydew thing to do today. My wife's new gas stove is being delivered today, and I got to make sure I'm there. So, but they're not supposed to be there until between 2 and 4, and I'm supposed to get a 20-minute warning call. So I'm like, well, maybe they're early. 614 number. Yeah, sorry. So. The hot cooking they do, you used to see the videos of them cooking them on a hot plate or on a stove and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really happen that much anymore. It's more of a one pot where they actually cook them in there in a, one of the, quart-sized pop bottles or whatever. And literally they would put them in their cargo pockets of their shorts and stuff and be walking through Walmart cooking their meth.
Are they like explosive though? I thought I heard about them like exploding.
They are. When they off-gas it, because they use the reactive agent they use to cook it in a cold cook is the battery, rechargeable batteries anyway, that strips out of those. They drop them down in there, and that's what causes it to cook.
Okay.
It builds up a gas, and they have to off-gas it. That separates the product and everything. But yeah, when they're off-gassing it, it can be very explosive, especially near a flame or a cigarette.
As you're cooking it, or whatever, is there a smell, an odor?
Ether. Ether is one of the reagents they use, and that's how we would know when we had a trash bag in the middle of the street that they discarded their meth lab, because you could smell the ether.
In what lengths could, say, if I'm over here, if I'm living here, and there's an alley here, there's another house on the other alley, or right here on the other side of the alley, should I have been able to smell something?
Well, probably, depending on how good your nose is. We had I got called one night. I was the assistant chief on duty, and I got called on a possible meth lab at a house. They thought they had a meth lab in this house, and I stepped out. I was in an alley. The house is probably set back off the alley there, I don't know, 50 feet. And as soon as I stepped out on the alley, I could smell the ether in the air. I said, "Yeah, you got meth labs in there, or a meth lab at least."
I mean, maybe, I don't know, but I was told, that this person was, down in the basement and had, doing meth, and this and that. And,
Yeah,
what? I'm living right beside him,
You'll smell the ether, if you know what ether smells like.
Well, I mean, like I said, maybe I smelled something and I, as dumb as I am, I
Yep.
didn't even think of it. But
Yeah, you'll smell the ether, and now when they used to hot cook in the houses, that would permeate the walls of the house, and basically the house would have to be destroyed after that,
Wow.
because they use things like libel acid, iodine. There's a lot of, the byproduct of meth production is very toxic, and so when we would get called out on a one pot, which is what they called their new method of cooking it, we didn't even bother. We stood by because it's very flammable and can explode. So we would actually gear guys up and stand by with extinguishers and stuff, while the guys who were trained from law enforcement to dismantle them would dismantle them in case they exploded, and they wore flame retardant protective equipment also.
When you refer to a meth lab, does that one container, does that constitute a meth lab, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You.
I just
I don't
picturing
know.
some big room with all these
That right there. What
bottles.
is that? 1 quart.
That could be a meth lab?
That could be a meth lab.
Okay, I got
Yeah.
you.
yeah, I didn't have any idea, what all
But you're
this
some mad
person had down the
scientist
basement,
room.
I thought,
You'll see
well,
things like
okay.
usually I wish I could think of the batteries. Can't think of what they are, but they're
Alkaline and
lithium.
Lithium.
Lithium. Thank you. Lithium is reactive to water. Okay. Well, they will tear the batteries apart and get the lithium strip out of the battery to use as a reagent to cook their acid, their meth. And so usually what you'll see at a house that's producing meth, one of the things you look for, like in trash cans, is lots of discarded Sudafed cool tablets.
I heard that you have to sign for those or
That's
something
why
when
you have
buy
to
them?
sign for those now at pharmacies, because they're tracked by the DEA.
Somebody told me you can get $80 anytime by picking up a box of Sudafed and giving it to somebody.
Yeah, they have people, they will actually pay people to drive states to get Sudafed tablets for their meth production. Yeah. And so, yeah, you'll see discarded Sudafed or Actifed, because that's the agent that actually holds it all together. Iodine batteries, discarded ether containers, pop bottles that have nasty stuff in them that's left over. Usually they don't throw those away. Their labs, they usually throw those out in the street somewhere in a dumpster somewhere. So
Now, when you talk about cooking it, that literally, and at least in the case I bought it, it's not really heat. It's just a chemical reaction triggered by that.
Yep, the lithium battery provides the heat, or the lithium strip provides the heat, and the causes it to cook and off gas and boil and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a chemical reaction, but it's a heated reaction.
It's still heated?
Yeah, it's still heated. Yep. They had a guy one time walking through Walmart and was cooking. They literally, I think they got him for shoplifting, but when they stopped him, he literally had a meth lab cooking in his kangaroo pocket. We had a guy up on Main Street one night. Police officers pulled him over, and he had his kids in the back seat of the car, and he's cooking his meth in the back of his car behind the seat.
Oh my!
Where the kids were sitting. So yeah, So that was, you know, what we dealt with there. A lot of people at risk, but not people dying from it, you know. And then along come, you know, the heroin epidemic and the opiates. And when we got into the opiates there, it was readily apparent that something was different there, because overdoses, I mean, just usually when you had an overdose come across the speaker, you know, it was either an accidental overdose, grandma took too much medication or took the wrong medications together, or somebody was trying to kill themselves and took too many pills of something. Those were what we thought of as an overdose. Rarely was it a drug overdose. And then my first experience with an opiate overdose was probably about 2010, and it was rare. But then they started coming, like, you know, when I was deputy chief and going into the chief area, we were starting experiencing 2, 3 a day, 4, 5, 6 a day. Sometimes we were going out the door 10 times a day on overdoses. And we were going back to residents multiple times where people had overdosed, and Narcan them. You've probably heard of the Narcan or naloxone that reverses the effects. And then there was times when you were doing multiple doses of that to try to bring them back. And then we started having a lot of deaths from them. And a lot of the deaths, I think, were related to people not wanting to call for help because they had drug activity going on at their house. They didn't want to get in trouble. So we were finding people overdosed out on the side of the street. People would call, literally, there would be somebody laying in the middle of the street overdosing on an opiate. They just rolled them out of the car or threw them out of the house in front of the middle of the street. Didn't want to call for help. Somebody driving down the street happened to see the body laying there and said, hey, there's somebody unconscious over here. And so we dealt with that a lot. And last year that kind of peaked. We had, it hit the media pretty well. We were dealing with the carfentanil. Carfentanil was like instant death. It's the elephant tranquilizer. It's the strongest dosage of fentanyl. It's not even a medicinal use for it. And so we were starting to see the effects of that here. When it hit there at about January, February, I think we had, within about a 10-day period, I think we had 17 deaths just in Muskegon County. And 90% of the overdoses happened inside the city of Zanesville. So out of the 17 deaths, I think we had about 14 or 15 deaths inside the city during that time frame. And that kind of got the interest of some organizations that were charged with addressing those things in our community, and then he started having some meetings, and I got to attend some of those high-level meetings. And I'll be honest with you, I won't mention names or organizations, but I was surprised at how uneducated those charged, because when the epidemic hit, I started educating myself and wanting to know what our guys were facing when they went out on the streets. And we were really not prepared as a community, honestly, as to what was hitting us. We were literally trying to put out spot fires and when the forest was burning down around us. And the problem was well grounded and well rooted in the community at that point, and we were behind the 8 ball, so to speak, trying to, if anybody knows anything about pool, we were literally behind the curve on trying to address the problem. And I have seen statistics this year where overdose deaths are down in our communities. I've seen, and I still follow overdoses. I'm still hooding fire and EMS, and I know nationwide the number of overdoses are down and the number of deaths are down. Ohio is still top 5 though in overdose deaths in the country. And I have some philosophies, some personal philosophies on why that's happening. I don't think it's anything that anybody, any intervention is changing right now. if somebody wants treatment, I think treatment is out there and available. The problem I see is I don't think we're necessarily impacting the opiate problem as much as it's a choice that those that are battling addictions are trading off their addictions. So in other words, because there's such a stigma with fentanyl, and on the other hand, there are people that are using straight fentanyl now. They're out there, instead of just going for heroin, they're going straight fentanyl. But I think we're trading back to meth. And I know cocaine use is on the rise again. Cocaine was big back in the 80s and then became crack cocaine in the 90s. I've seen where cocaine use is on the rise again. So what do? Our dealers are now lacing fentanyl into the cocaine and into the meth. Makes sense to me, right? But we're not seeing the impact of that yet, I don't think. But I think we will. I think as a society, and I saw where the big drug manufacturer, J&J, Johnson & Johnson, just got hit with a $572 million, that's their first payment, first installment out of the lawsuit. And I'm not going to get political, but I think our pharmaceuticals did not do society any good with their information they had on their opiate-based medications.
I know from experience.
Yeah, and I mean, it was the miracle drug that took away the pain, right?
That's what they told me.
And non-addictive.
That's what they told me.
Yeah, and that was sold by our pharmaceuticals, and you'll never convince me that they didn't know otherwise. So that's kind of my perspective. One of the things we battled at the fire department, and I heard it from the guys daily, especially when you're running 5 to 10 overdoses a day, and you're going back and you're seeing the same guy 3 or 4 times in a week, and then you transport to the hospital, and before you even pull out of the hospital in your rig, the guy's walking down the street, checking himself out of the ER, and they were like, why are we doing this? Why are we wasting the money? Why are we wasting this? Why don't we just let them die? Compassion fatigue starts setting in. And, there's a lot of reasons why people get into the fire and EMS game. I got into it. One, I was a legacy. My dad was a firefighter back in the day. You got into the business to help people. That was the bottom line. You're called into their worst day to make order out of chaos. And so that, I tried to instill that in them. Look, we're here to help these people. We're called, when we get a 911 call to go out there, we're called to go out there and make a difference. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But we have to try. We have a duty to act by the law. We can't say, I don't like your first name, so I'm just going to let you die. And we don't get to play that role. And so we were battling compassion fatigue, and you battled in the law enforcement area, and you battled in the EMS arena, and that bothered me, that we were losing compassion for people. I had personal friends that had children that are addicted. I had personal friends that lost loved ones to the addiction of heroin. And my perspective, and I tried to instill in them, look, this is somebody's brother, their sister, their loved one, somebody's mom, somebody's dad, aunt, uncle, somebody loves that person. I don't care who they are. And, like it says in Scripture, when the disciple asked Jesus, is how many times do we forgive? 7 times? No, 7 times, 77 times, right? That's a lot of forgiveness. And they say that the average person battling an opiate addiction will fail, I think it's like 7 or 8 times before they will seek sobriety. Okay, so they can overdose up to 7 or 8 times. Who am I to say, hey, this is number 2, you don't get another chance? That's not what we're here to do. And these people battle for various reasons. A lot of people think it's a choice. I know a young man that is addicted, that his addiction he was led into his addiction by a 4-wheeler accident. A back injury came out of a 4-wheeler accident. That young man didn't go out and seek opiates. He was prescribed to him. I had a toothache. I called my doctor or my dentist and I said, hey, I got this toothache. Can you give me I think I got an abscess. Can you sit and give me an antibiotic until I can get in to see you next week? Yeah, I'll give you a prescription. I go and I got like 3 bottles in there. One of them's a big bottle of Tramadol. I don't need Tramadol. Ibuprofen's taking care of the pain. I just need, the antibiotic to start fighting the abscess until I get in there to see you, And so I think we've been too liberal as a society to prescribe those medications.
They were writing me 250 Percocet a month, my back pain.
And not questioning it.
And I kept questioning.
They weren't questioning it.
Yeah, no. So there's nothing we can do but give you, anytime I complain about pain, they give me more.
Yeah.
And I finally went in and said, could you help me get off of these? He's like, not interested. Oh, just wean yourself off, and walked out.
Mm-hmm. And as you noticed, and hopefully you're gleaning some insight off of what I'm saying today. Paul asked me to come in and share. I've got a lot of experience. I mean, I've literally been out on a scene and helped, set up the IV and shoot the Narcan and such, and literally watched the person come back to life.
And any of us can get Narcan, I understand, at the
Yes.
Department of Health.
You can buy it at CVS now. You can get it at CVS. Yes. And basically, it comes in a syringe form, has what's called a vaporizer, and it's a little cone-shaped thing. You put it on the end, and you shoot half in each nostril, and it will bring them back if they haven't died already.
We got about 5 minutes for 1:30.
5 minutes.
How long?
We're good.
You mentioned your friend had a motorcycle accident. Well, I have a friend that's now in Columbus, just right now, going back to a surgeon. Okay. When we went into hospital to see him, by the time we got there, they had given him, I don't know, one from the other, but it was like boom, 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 boom for the pain, because he messed himself up. And then 12 o'clock at night, we were headed to Grant. How long, now he's doing better, but he's in rehab. How long does it actually take that a person gets hooked or whatever on oxycodone
Or Oxycontin.
Yeah.
I really can't answer that because I believe that everybody's body is physiologically different.
I know that.
So I really can't answer on a time frame, but I took a class on opioid addictions over in Springfield here. It's been 4 or 5 years ago, and it was presented by a board certified addiction specialist that actually worked in ER in Dayton at Miami Valley Hospital in the ER. And what he told us was basically every opiate, whether it doesn't matter what it is, heroin, once it goes into your body physiologically changes it into morphine. So he said we would have seekers come in, people who want the drugs, and they say, "Oh, I need fentanyl because my body I'm addicted to morphine, I'm allergic to morphine, so I have to have." And he knew they were seeking because he would ask them the question, "Well, as soon as I give you the fentanyl, your body's going to turn that into morphine. So how are you addicted to morphine?" Because that's what our bodies do to the opiate; they turn it into morphine. But what he said was, and one thing I took away from it. Now, I thought I was going to have shoulder surgery last year, so I was researching out nerve blocks and everything. I've never taken a pain pill. Don't want to take one. Don't care to take one. I've had some serious accidents, had a lot of pain. I've been able to manage that pain other ways. So I was looking at like nerve blocks and stuff because they say it's one of the most painful surgeries you can have, right? But what he said was, if your body is truly in pain, that opiate-based medication will not have the same effects on it as what you will if your body's not in pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It will use that medication differently. So the key is, and I had a young lady or a lady that went in. They thought she was having chest pains. They gave her morphine, and she said, I can see how people get addicted to that stuff, because she says I had this just this warm, mellow feeling just come out all over my body, and she's like, oh.
People would tell me that, and I'm like, I don't feel anything except it takes the edge off the pain. My son had to explain it to me. Well, you have pain, so it goes to your pain, and you use it as prescribed, I assume.
Yep. And if you would have gotten to the 9/11, I'll invite you all. I'll put in our shameful plug for our 9/11 event coming up next Wednesday. We have a nationally known speaker coming in. It was a mother of a young lady that battled addictions, and she's our keynote speaker. And then we have 4 local personalities that are going to do some TED Talks at the end. So it's between 4 and 8 o'clock. The speaking part is actually from 6 to 8 at Secrets Auditorium. It's free.
I'm going to be on the radio Saturday morning, YBZ, talking about it.
Awesome.
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, 9/11. Wednesday afternoon. So love to see you guys come down, and it probably will be very insightful.
There'll be some food and resource tables at 4, music at 5, and program at 6.
Yep. So I encourage you to come down for that. So that's kind of been my involvement. If you notice during my whole talk, not one time have you heard me say addict, have you?